Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. We are Brigade of Beans, a diagnosed dissociative identity disorder system. My name is Helena and this video is an interview with a Factive. Some basics about me. As I've already said, my name is Helena. I am 15 years old. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a former abuser introject, now protector. Although I just said former abuser introject, I am going to talk about my experiences as a Factive because whilst I no longer use those labels, whilst they no longer fit me, I did spend many years even, being a Factive and existing as one, and I want to talk about those experiences and what it was like having to fulfill that role, and how I've changed and how I've grown and how I've healed, basically. So the first question that I'm asked is, how did I fulfill my role? So when I was a Factive, I was so dissociated from the reality of the situation that I wholeheartedly believed myself to be our abuser. I thought that I was our abuser. When I fronted, I was so dissociated from the body that it was like viewing it in third person. When I was in the inner world, I fully believed myself to be our abuser and enacted abuse against alters internally, which isn't okay, but it wasn't because I wanted to hurt them. The best way I can kind of explain it was like it was a very, very complex form of flashback. It was essentially trauma reenactment. Although I didn't cognitively realize that at the time, I didn't really have the ability to recognize much. I existed purely to reenact these things and to continue these beliefs and to basically have some control over what was happening to us, because I felt like I was in control of my actions, and that collectively made the brain, I guess, feel safer, even though it put us into some really dangerous situations and really compromised my relationship with other alters internally. Having an alter who was essentially enacting abuse meant that it was something that we were doing to ourselves, and then it felt like there was more control there, even though there really wasn't. And so, yeah, I essentially existed to hurt the system, and to hold on to the belief that we weren't a victim. And it was very, very hard to rationalize with the fact that I was a victim, and that I wasn't a perpetrator. And that took me years to come to terms with. So question 2, are there any role stereotypes and do I fit any? I think the biggest stereotype is that abuser introjects are an evil alter. They're going to come out and they're going to hurt other people. And whilst I did hurt the system, I hurt other alters, I hurt the body, I never once felt any desire or need to enact those behaviors onto somebody else. Although I was potentially a dangerous alter, and I had a lot of maladaptive behaviors, I was never once dangerous to other people. And that might be different for some systems, but having DID doesn't make someone evil or dangerous, but there can be evil and dangerous people who have DID. But it's not as if I was an evil alter. I never once wanted to hurt other people. I never went out of my way to seek out to abuse anyone outside of the system. And even when it was stuff that I was doing to my own system and to my own body, it was a recreation of stuff that had already happened to me, and it was an expression of what I'd gone through, even though I, at the time, didn't realize that fully. And so yeah, I do just want to say that like abuser introjects aren't just an evil, scary alter, but we also can be quite dangerous and can be quite scary. And getting therapy and getting help was very, very, very important for me to be able to change and grow and become who I am now, who is completely different to who I used to be then. And I am so grateful for how much I've changed, because I was not well at all. And whilst I still struggle a lot of the time now, and there's some aspects that are really heavy now, it's so much nicer to have trust with other headmates. It's so much nicer to have connections with other headmates. It's so much nicer to realize that I have autonomy and choice over my actions, and that I'm not just a representation of evil. So question 3, do I have any other roles? Yes, I now consider myself to be a protector. I am an internal protector, and I specifically help other alters who are abuser introjects or just persecutors come to terms with the fact that that's not who they are, and I help use my own experiences with becoming my true self to help them become their true selves and to help them step out of what is essentially a protective mask of danger that they project onto the system, and realize that it's okay and it's safe enough for them to just be themselves. And I think that's the best way to describe it. Second part of that question is, how do my two roles differ, or my current role and my former role, I should say, and they differ quite a lot. I went from being that person in the system that no one except other abuser introjects trusted to now being someone in the system that is considered vital to our healing. I'm held in relatively high regard, which is something that's quite overwhelming for me, but I understand why. There's a lot of respect that other alters have for me in the system. And now it's flipped over to the abuser introjects distrust me, because I am kind of an insight into what their future could look like, but it's such a big change. When you think that you are an abuser, when you think that you are your source, when you think that you are this dangerous person, and you're faced with the reality of the fact that you are actually that person's victim, it is incredibly hard to come to terms with, and sometimes you just don't want to face it. Even when I first started healing, and I first started recovering, and I started to accept that I wasn't my source, I wasn't that person, I still acted really dangerous and scary. I would still use her voice internally. I still made myself look like her internally to scare other alters. And that was kind of adaptive. I used to front when we were suicidal because I terrified the suicidal alter so much that they couldn't come into front when I was there. But the downside to that was it was all being reinforced by fear. It was all being reinforced by these really negative things. And so I still wasn't building that trust and connection. And whilst it kept us alive, it also just furthered the distance between myself and other headmates. So I learned more adaptive ways to do that and kind of stopped having to be that person who fulfills that role, because we have Magnus now, and instead became someone who could just focus on helping these abuser introjects and showing them that although change is scary, although accepting that these things that happen to you is really hard and something that sometimes feels impossible, it is possible and it is okay, and you can become so much more than the things that happen to you and so much more than the person that you think that you are. And get to know the real you is really, really powerful, and I'm so glad that it's something that I've got to experience and I've got to help other alters experience as well. Question 4 is something I like and dislike about being a Factive. I disliked all of it, really, now looking back. At the time I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the sense of power it gave me. I enjoyed the sense of control that it gave me. I enjoyed feeling untouchable and immune to anything bad ever happening to me. But then looking back, that was just not true. Stuff did still happen to me. I just didn't compute it as happening to me. I rationalized it as being these other things. And I was still just a hurt and scared little kid at the end of the day. And looking back, I don't enjoy any of it. I don't enjoy how I acted towards other headmates. I don't enjoy how I treated the body. I don't like any of it. But I am grateful that I got to have that experience, because it does mean that I can help other headmates. Although I really wish that our brain hadn't gone the route of forming abuser introjects, because it's hard. It's really hard, but our brain did what it needed to do to protect itself. And I was part of that. And that doesn't mean that we're limited to what we used to be. Question 5, how did I know my role? I didn't, because I didn't realize I was an alter in a system, but other alters did. They could hear my voice internally. I projected what I looked like to them. I used our abuser's name. It was very clear to them that I was an introject of our abuser. And so they labeled me for me. When it came to realizing that I was a protector, there's many different words that you could use to describe what I do. but I just felt like protector was the one that resonated the most, because my whole life, all I've been trying to do is protect myself. And now it feels like I can finally protect others as well. And so I wanted that label. And so I took it and it fits and I like it. And I like that it still gives me a sense of power in a way, autonomy, definitely, without terrifying everyone else in the system. Okay, final question. If I could be any other role in the system, what would I be? If I could be any other role in the system, I think that I would quite like to be the host. I like fronting. I love when I get to be in the body and I get to watch my TV shows or listen to my books. I don't get to front that much at all. I like being able to get dressed and like put makeup on and put jewelry on and pick what we're wearing. But I hardly ever get to do that. I am getting more used to interacting with other people. I like spending time with our cats. I think that I would quite happily be a host or a co-host, but it just doesn't work that way. And that's okay, but I'm really trying to work on fronting more, and trying to get the system to make space for me to front more. And it is kind of working, and yeah, it's nice. That's the role I would be. Those are the questions. I did just want to add a little bit of final note that growth is constantly happening, whether you think it is or not. You are constantly changing, and that's okay. Sometimes change can happen really, really fast, and sometimes it happens really slowly, and that's all okay. If you are an introject of an abuser watching this, or if you have introjects in your system, I want to let you know that it is okay to be scared of them, and it's okay to want to avoid them, and it's okay to have safety rules in place. But please never limit them to that, because there is so much more that they can be. We can realize that we're not who we think we are, and we can recover, we can get better coping skills. And yeah, I think that it's just important to note that no alter in the system is stagnant to their behaviors. Alters can get better, alters can get worse. We're not all human, but we're all people, we're all growing, we're all changing, and that's okay. And I really hope that people realize that we're not just scary evil alters. We are most of the time children, even though like bodily we're not anymore. Like when I split, I was a child trying to protect myself, and the only way I knew how was to think that I was somebody else. Yeah. Before I start crying, I'm going to wrap this video up. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave requests for other alter role interviews you would like to see in the comments, or other videos you'd like to see. Yes, anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We will see you next time. Bye!